Hello everyone. If you tuned into our February episode Trade War Alert, you will remember we discussed the US administration's early move to reconfigure global supply chain by imposing targeted tariff on imports from China, Vietnam and other key manufacturing nations. Back then, we called it a strategic restructuring to reduce reliance on foreign production. But today, this has become a full-blown trade war which is sending shockwaves across the global economy, shaking up stock market across the world and shaking the bilateral relations between all nations. The situation has taken a dramatic turn with new declarations and challenges happening every day. In this episode of Logistically Speaking, we are diving deep into understanding what's inside Trump's Tariff War 2.0, Liberation Day or global fallout. We will also analyze whether this is a big breakthrough for India to rise as a global export powerhouse, or are we looking at ripple effects that could challenge the entire industry. President Donald Trump has made waves with a sweeping tariff announcement declaring April 2 as Liberation Day for the US economy. If you have been following the news, you have seen the shockwaves this bold move has sent through global market. Dow Jones is down by 3,000 points, Hong Kong market down by 14%, Taiwan by 10% and all the stock market across the world is down. Even crypto bull cycle has turned to bear and global leaders are reacting negatively towards this new policy. The following days saw retaliatory measures from few other nations and increase in tariff by China by 34% on US. In continuation of what Donald Trump announced that if any country put retaliatory tariff on US, they would further increase the tariff and stop negotiation. US announced 50% further tariff on China if this is not withdrawn in 48 hours, which would result the tariff for China reaching 104% in totality by April 9th. In short, these changes isn't just another policy update, it's a fundamental realignment of global trade. The term Liberation Day underscores the administration's belief that this tariff will free the US economy from long-standing trade imbalances and over-reliance on foreign manufacturing. Having said that, President Trump declared America will be kind to other nations and charge only half of what they charge US. His statements mark a shift towards reciprocal trade policy, one where US tariffs reflect but remain lower than those imposed by other nations. Instead of tolerating long-standing trade imbalances, this approach is framed as a move towards fair trade rather than free trade. To illustrate this point, President Trump presented a comparative tariff chart highlighting discrepancy between US import duties and those of its trading partners. The reciprocal tariff model serves as the foundation of this new trade strategy. Let me take you through the key takeaways from Trump's Liberation Day tariff. First, a sweeping tariff hike across all imports starting April 5th. Every product entering the US will face a minimum 10% tariff, affecting everything from raw material to finished goods. Secondly, higher tariff on key trade partners with some countries hit significantly higher than others. China faces a 34% tariff, Vietnam 46%, European Union 20%, India 26%, Bangladesh 37% and Cambodia a staggering 49%. This move signals a clear strategy, realigning trade relationships and discouraging over-reliance on foreign manufacturing. And third, a major blow to the automobile industry. All import cars will now carry a 25% tariff, making foreign vehicles significantly more expensive for American consumers and pushing automakers to rethink their supply chain. These measures mark a fundamental shift in how the US plan to approach global trade, setting the stage for a dramatic rebalancing of economic power. The crucial question is, what does this mean for the business and how the world is reacting? Firstly, one must recognize that markets are already reacting and stock prices have dipped, supply chains are under pressure, and companies that rely on export to US are now scrambling to adjust their cost structure. Some will try to absorb the cost, but most will have no choice but to pass them on to the consumers. This isn't just theory. Margins will tighten, prices will rise, the world has already reacted. For instance, the European Union has condemned the move and already discussing retaliatory tariff. Japan has called the move extremely regrettable and is seeking exemptions, and Vietnam, one of the hardest hit countries, warns of severe economic consequences. The entire world was watching Chinese reaction, and they have responded with a retaliatory tariff of 34% on US, but within hours they were threatened with additional 50% by US if this is not withdrawn within 48 hours. During this period, many of the world leaders have criticized this initiative, including Canada and European leaders and Singapore Prime Minister, whose video has gone viral.
But what the US is doing now is not reform. It is abandoning the entire system it had created. Its new approach of reciprocal tariffs, country by country, is a complete rejection of the WTO framework.
President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy.
Now, let's come to the big question. What about India? Well, India finds itself in a unique position in this evolving tariff landscape. Analysts suggest that India may emerge as a key beneficiary with its export poised for growth during this shifting dynamics. Perhaps this is why India's leadership has chosen a cautious silence, though some analysts argue that staying on the sidelines could prove risky. With a 26% tariff on export to the US, our rate is significantly lower than Vietnam's 46%, Cambodia's 49%, and China's 34%, giving Indian industries a potential competitive edge. Though 26% look heavy, competitive advantage India get over these competing nations can help in India's export growth, and most importantly, India's high-ticket exports, that is IT and pharmaceutical, are currently untouched. Some industry, particularly in focus, is footwear and garments. With Vietnam and Cambodia facing some steepest tariff at 46% and 49%, India's lower 26% could make it more attractive sourcing destination for US buyers. Already the share prices of companies active in garment and textile export to US like Kitex Limited, Lux Industries, Page Industries, and in footwear, Laxo Footwear, Data India, Metro Brands, share prices is going up even when the India stock market is falling down. This shift in tariff presents a critical opportunity for Indian manufacturers to strengthen their market position, but success will depend on how quickly they can adapt, innovate, scale up, and remain cost competitive. If leveraged wisely, these tariff adjustments could serve as a stepping stone for India to expand its footprint in the US market. However, realizing this potential will require strategic action both from businesses and policymakers. A proactive approach in trade negotiation, supply chain optimization, and industry incentive will be key to turning this challenge into an advantage. Let's start with pharmaceutical, one of India's strongest export sectors. The US market accounts for a significant share of revenue for our leading pharma companies. Sun Pharmaceutical at 35% of its revenue coming from the US, while Dr. Reddy is even more exposed with a 40 to 45% of its earning tied to the American market. Cipla at 30% and Lupin at 40% also face potential disruption. While pharma has so far been exempt from this new tariff, any shift in trade policies could shake up the sector. And beyond pharma, engineering goods and solar energy are also under pressure. Companies like Tata Power has 20% from US as revenue and Adani Green export 25% to the US and now face higher costs, making it harder to stay competitive. As global trade relationships shift, these firms will need to diversify market, optimize supply chains or absorb price shock to maintain their foothold. The agriculture and food processing industry is facing similar challenges. Companies like ITC and Godrej Agrovet, both with a 20% of export headed to the US, have long relied on American demand. But if these tariffs hold, Indian farm and food export could lose their edge, making pricing adjustment inevitable. Meanwhile, gems, jewelry sectors where over 30% of export go to the US are bracing for a slowdown. Already dealing with tight margin, these industries may now struggle with the reduced demand as US buyers reconsider sourcing option due to higher cost. Even India's IT giants Infosys, TCS and Persistent System felt the heat with stock prices dropping up to 5% ahead of the tariff announcement as uncertainty of client spend if there is a slowdown in US economy looms. While analysts expect a market rebound if the actual impact is less severe than feared, uncertainty still looms. Let's not forget that auto components and electronic manufacturers who are also reassessing their supply chain with rising raw material costs threatening to squeeze profit margin and weaken demand. The tariff war is just beginning and its ripple effects will reshape global trade for years to come. The road ahead may be uncertain, but one fact remains clear. Companies that adapt, innovate and strengthen their supply chains will emerge stronger. And for India, this is more than just a challenge. It's an opportunity. The nations and industries that move fast, invest in resilience and diversify their market will define the next chapter of global commerce. There is also a possibility that the current discussion on BTA with the US would result in India reducing tariff on products like wine and whiskey, which is at 150%, automobile at 70% to reduce rate, which would result in further reduction on 26% tariff which is announced. Will India rise to the occasion? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. Stay ahead, stay informed, and I will see you in the next episode.